Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Cast. We are coming at you on 16th of July here in Aotearoa, and we are here to discuss Aotearoa sporting matters. I was pondering a little global segment to start the podcast, a little bit of Euros chat, a little bit of other stuff around the world. And I was like, nah, we just talk about Aotearoa sport. So shout out to Aotearoa sport. Although I did appreciate, Ian Jones, the Carmo kid. I love his rugby union analysis. So I don't think we get a lot of Ian Jones rugby chat in Aotearoa, but he was part of the BBC team. So I was listening to a couple of their rugby union podcasts, and Ian Jones, he's better than the breakdown. I'll tell you that for sure. He just says things nice, sharp, concise. He'd actually work well on the Aotearoa Rugby pod. But if you do want to hear real high quality rugby analysis, just jam some Ian Jones, because that dude, he just delivers. And I appreciated listening to him on some of those BBC Rugby Union podcasts.
Did he acknowledge the presence of a second team in that All Black series?
He did.
Like, did they have opponents? He recognized that? Because I haven't seen a lot of that from anywhere else, which has been super weird. Of like the All Blacks win 2 games, and the coverage is, oh, they made a lot of mistakes though. You know, they got to be better than this. Maybe England were quite good. Like, maybe it's the first 2 games with a new coach. Maybe you can just enjoy a victory. Like, Jesus, man, this is the stuff that makes me so tuned out of all that coverage. Is like, you can't even just enjoy a victory, man. It's fine.
I had many of the similar thoughts, especially, here we go with the getting outside our bubble segment, because it's not global. Because
spontaneous podcast areas.
It's not a global segment around the world, because it's Aotearoa, it's the All Blacks, right? So we're going outside the bubble, but it was a fascinating look into the Aotearoa rugby psyche, because I thought the All Blacks, they played some pretty good rugby against some pretty good England rugby, and when the games are in the balance, just quintessential test match footy from the All Blacks to close those games out. Part of which is kicking. And I have thought deeply about kicking, because you got Beauden Barrett kicking off his left foot, his right foot. You got Geordie Barrett, left foot, right foot. You got Damian McKenzie, left foot, right foot. Like, that's about as good a kicking rotation. Stephen Perofeta's pretty damn good as well at fullback, because he is otherwise a first 5. So he's an excellent kicker as well. And I was thinking about the importance of kicking. I think the All Blacks kicking game won them 2 test matches. And that's what you need to do. You need to close out the test matches. Sure, there were some things at the end of those games that were in the balance, so it was a bit too close for comfort, but that got me thinking about the Warriors kicking. At a time when we've just seen Te Maire Martin, we've seen the weakness in his kicking game against the Bulldogs. I was like, ooh, this is interesting, because I genuinely think the All Blacks rotation of kickers won them both those test matches. And we will get into the Warriors later on in the podcast. Obviously, they had a bye round this week. They're playing the Raiders this Friday night. But the thing about Shaun Johnson is he's the best kicker at the Warriors. And if I'm to rank the all-round kicking game of the Warriors halves, it goes Shaun Johnson number 1, it goes Chanel Harris-Tavita number 2, it goes Te Maire Martin number 3, and it goes Luke Metcalf number 4. And it was interesting getting some of the reaction to that Warriors game against the Bulldogs. A lot of people, I don't know if they've really watched Te Maire Martin closely, because Te Maire Martin doesn't kick the ball long. He takes a long time for his kicks. He doesn't kick the ball very high. Short kicking game, I think he's really good. That's why he's a pretty damn impressive number 6. But when it's Chanel Harris-Tavita and Te Maire Martin together, Chanel Harris-Tavita does a lot of the long kicking because he can kick it further and higher than Te Maire Martin. So that's something to watch out for because, again, coming off that Bulldogs game, who do they have? Matt Burton. Fantastic kicker. And that is the case for Shaun Johnson's value and importance to the Warriors is his kicking game because he is definitively the best kicker at the Warriors. Long kicking game, short kicking game. He bends his grubbers both ways. He can put it high. Like it's a completely different package when Shaun Johnson is kicking it high, landing it on the 10-meter line compared to Te Maire Martin. Because Te Maire Martin's bombs, they don't go as high. They land on the 20-meter line. So there's a little kicking insight. Like that was just top of mind coming off that All Blacks series. However, I've lost my complete train of thought with where I was going. But I do think the All Blacks were pretty good. And I do think the Aotearoa rugby psyche is absolutely deranged. Like these people covering rugby, a lot of rugby fans, they're psychos. Like, as you said, you just won 2 hard-fought test matches that made a compelling case. Like, I enjoyed those tests. They made a compelling case for the quality of test match rugby. And as you said, after those test matches, it's a lot of All Blacks criticism. You got to chill out. You got to smell the roses and just appreciate some high-quality test rugby. And England, there's a lot of England on my mind right now. We've got the England Test cricket team thinking they're the saviors of Test cricket. Every test for England, the men's team, it involves some sort of investigation into the state of cricket. Every test. It's like, bro, can we just chill out? The West Indies, they're not that good right now. It's all good. It doesn't mean Test cricket is dying because teams are good, teams are bad. Like, this is how sport works. You don't need to try and save the West Indies. How about you just relax? But then I was like, well, England think they're part of the big three. England and their colonizer mindset think they are the overlords of cricket. So if they're the overlords of cricket and there's a lot of anxiety about the state of cricket, well, the overlords of cricket think they're the saviors of cricket. But they only think they're the saviors of cricket because it's their fear and anxiety they are projecting onto cricket. And if I'm looking at the global game of cricket, and I'm like, who are the big donnies of cricket? I'm thinking India's first, Australia's second, then it's England. And I don't think you're in a big three. I think it's a big one, and then Australia wins everything, then it's England. So England cricket, you need to chill out. We'll get into the White Ferns in a second because England women, they're just dominating the White Ferns, which is great stuff.
But is anyone talking about how women's cricket is dying because England are winning by so much against the White Ferns? Has that been a talking point, or is that just saved for the men's test team?
It's kind of similar because the White Ferns were once really good, like the West Indies were once really good.
Yeah, there's a parallel.
But sports is a cycle, so you're good and you're bad. It's all good. You don't need to investigate the state of cricket just because a team is losing. Because every West Indies test series, they roll out the highlights of the 80s. Like, that happened in Australia as well. And it's like, oh, the West Indies are bringing their ancient excellence to this test series. You're like, bruh, they're not that good right now. And they beat you, Australia, recently. But it's just like, there's good teams, there's bad teams. You don't need to, just chill out. But England rugby, I think they're just looking for some, acceptance and admiration from New Zealand rugby. Like, they're trying to earn the respect of New Zealand rugby, not only with the way they play, but the way they talk about their team and their performances. And I think it's a very English thing to do. But I was pleasantly surprised at just compared to New Zealand rugby commentary and opinion, how just mellow and commonsensical the English rugby coverage was. and you had Ian Jones just chiming in with like real crisp analysis of what was happening. And Ian Jones, he was very appreciative of England rugby. He was like, Darren Lawrence, he's an excellent midfielder. Marcus Smith, like all these things, all these good things about English rugby. Ian Jones was bigging them up. So don't really know what the point of all that was. I've just been, like, to be honest, I wrote a few paragraphs in the newsletter yesterday. Shout out to our newsletter, thenichecache.substack.com, voicing many of these frustrations, these little triggered moments that I have about English sport. And I deleted them, so they're all fresh in my mind, and then I just spurted them out right then. Shout out to the newsletter. Newsletter went out yesterday, Monday. Bumper newsletter, lots of Aotearoa sporting information. And of course, I think this is what got me hot and bothered in the first place, is so much Euros coverage in New Zealand. Which is like the stuff in the Americas football, like that is crazy. Like a lot of stuff going on there was genuinely crazy.
Genuinely crazy, yes.
Bit of Latino fire, but also a bit of USA incompetence thrown in there. But like, to the extent where one of the news outlets was trying to make a case like that the Euros is good for New Zealand football. And it's like, no, New Zealand football is completely different to Euros football. It's only, you only think they're connected because your English mate in New Zealand only talks about the Euros. And it's like, we are New Zealand, like the old colonizer.
I'm trying to think of one way in which they're even connected. Like, what's even a link between the All Whites or New Zealand football and the Euros? Just that some of our players play in Europe, because all the South American dudes, most of them play in Europe too. Like,
that's an interesting juxtaposition, because there's not a whole lot of Copa America coverage in New Zealand. But you go on some of the main New Zealand sports websites and they've got live coverage of the Euros. And you're like, whoa. I don't know what the difference is between the Euros and the Copa America stuff. But you seem to be prioritizing one over the other, and neither have anything to do with New Zealand. So there you go. That's just me getting on my high horse and having a little whinge. But it's what we do because we only care about Aotearoa sport. And I was going to do a global segment. I was going to get out of the bubble. And I was like, nah, let's just focus on Aotearoa sport. But then I was so frustrated, I did it anyway. How about that? Great start to the podcast. You can definitely go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters with our news at thenichecache.substack.com. Completely free, full of Aotearoa sporting stuff every Monday and Friday evening. If you're feeling really generous and you want to support the lads out, you can upgrade to a paid Substack subscription and access our subscriber podcast that we record every Thursday, bonus podcast for the folks with a paid Substack subscription, and also the generous folks supporting us straight up the guts through Patreon. You can join the Patreon whānau as another way to support the Niche Cache. The newsletters get copied straight into Patreon the morning after they are published. Obviously, the subscriber podcast goes straight through Patreon as well. Otherwise, you can make a donation through Buy Me a Coffee. And if none of that tickles your fancy, you can just say g'day, say kia ora through any other social media platforms. And obviously, you're listening here, now, with us. And we appreciate you. Hopefully, you're doing well across Aotearoa, looking after yourself, look after yourself first and foremost, because then you can look after those around you. How about that? A little bit of pre-mindfulness, but we'll get the real mindfulness from old mate over here. What do you got?
I've got a line from Sharon Salzberg, who said, "One does not plant a bitter seed and reap a sweet fruit." Doesn't happen. Sharon Salzberg said so.
But you can plant a sweet seed and get a bitter fruit.
You can, I suppose, yeah. If you plant it in too much shade, or if you don't give it enough water or whatever, if you don't tend to it in the correct manners, then Absolutely. Your sweet seed could turn sour by the time the fruit comes around. You might also just think this is not too uncommon of a gardener point. You might also not get fruit at all from from that seed. It might not grow that big if you don't tend the garden. So yeah, we could swing this metaphor in a few different in a few different directions.
Repeat it one more time for us.
One does not plant a bitter seed. One does not plant it. I got it on my phone and the screen went black in between, so I was trying to cover the gap and I lost it. One does not plant a bitter seed and reap a sweet fruit.
Beauty. The white ferns. They're a bitter seed and they're a bitter fruit. So shout out to the white ferns because they're ticking all the boxes of our mindfulness. The white ferns. Now, a lot of that Aotearoa sporting coverage completely ignores the white ferns. And let me just double check. Morning of the 16th. I'm going to go to the New Zealand Cricket website. Fresh tab, doing this live. New Zealand Cricket, what's their latest international cricket story? New Zealand Cricket backs revamped Eden Park. Who gives a shit? And there's no White Ferns game coverage. So we have a White Ferns team that is getting absolutely spanked in England, by England. But the Euros are on. You know, priorities there. For those who haven't been paying attention, those who don't care, the White Ferns, they suck. They are losing in England. And they are just getting dominated. They have lost every game of this tour. They lost the ODIs 3-0. They are now 4-0 in the T20s. And there's one game to play Thursday morning. I did theorise that the White Ferns would win the third and final ODI to seal a White Ferns sweep, losing the first two games, winning the last game when it doesn't matter. They didn't do that. They are now 4-0 down with a game to play, and I am going to theorise once again that they will win this last T20.
The White Ferns tour sweep.
White Ferns tour sweep. 7-1. Congratulations. But I don't know if they will because England are far better. They're far superior. They're on fire. They are running rampant. And you've got this very hot England team playing great cricket. Everyone's having a jolly old time. And then you've got the White Ferns who not only are they not playing very good cricket under the coach Ben Sawyer, who, let's be honest, he's made the White Ferns worse. But the White Ferns also don't have any confidence. The White Ferns have been on this journey of just having their souls snatched out of them in the international cricket landscape. Started with the West Indies loss at the ODI World Cup in New Zealand when the White Ferns started to really stink. There was a palpable lack of confidence there. And that was 2 years ago. A little bit longer. Since then, they've just kept losing. And so here we are right now, and from Aotearoa, I can feel the lack of confidence that the White Ferns have in England. And of course, they were rolled by England in New Zealand last summer. Home summer in which they lost 3 out of 4 series they played. And they're not good. Some of the, I was interested, part of the development here though is, Ben Sawyer's definitely made the White Ferns worse. Funnily enough, they were okay when they had Hayley Tiffin, a female coach. They replaced her with a male coach, Bob Carter. He made them worse. They replaced him with another male coach. He made them worse. So shout out to all the men making women's teams worse. But some of the stuff, throughout that, throughout that, the Bob Carter era, the Ben Sawyer era, Sophie Devine has been the captain throughout that. And so the White Ferns have got so bad that now I'm thinking, like, what is Sophie Devine's impact on this team? Because, like, everything she says in the press coverage, the videos after the game that the White Ferns upload, even going back to what she said when the White Ferns sealed the White Ferns sweep in New Zealand last summer. They lost the first 2 games of the ODIs, I think it was. They won the 3rd one. And Sophie Devine found validation in all their hard work that they won a game. Well, they've got worse since then, so there's no validation. And Sophie Devine, she's saying stuff like, we just want to see some ticker. A little bit of heart, a little bit of grit. You get smoked. And there's this, like, yucky combination of someone like Sophie Devine not taking a wicket in the whole tour of England. Like, that's one of your best bowlers. She doesn't have any wickets. She's bowling lots of overs. She's expensive. She's not taking any wickets. Jess Kerr, one of your best bowlers, doesn't take a wicket in this tour of England. Like, don't even worry about the youngsters. Don't even worry about the fact that Molly Penfold's only bowled 1 over in this T20 series for no reason at all. Don't even worry that Michaela Gregg was celebrated for being selected, getting a contract. She hasn't played in England, right? Like, Michaela Gregg was the best batter for the New Zealand A team, who defeated England A last summer in the one-dayers. She was the best batter. But she's not good enough to play for a team that is going 0-7 in this tour. Somehow Michaela Gregg isn't good enough to play for this shitty team. That's crazy. Maddie Green in the T20 series, she's averaging 11. Georgia Plummer, she's averaging 6. I think prior to this most recent T20, she was averaging something like 0.5, which is also crazy. I've never actually typed a 0 point something batting average. And that was the first time I've done it. I was like, whoa, this is wild. I'm typing a 0.5 AVG in my little write-ups on the newsletter usually. Shout out to Substack, thenichecache.substack.com. Izzy Gaze. Whoa. How about I just say this? Because Izzy Gaze is averaging 11 as well, and there's only 3 batters who are averaging over 20, which means there's roughly 10 batters who are averaging less than 20. Less than 15, to be honest, because none of them are averaging over 15. All that stuff's happening. The youngsters aren't doing anything because the White Ferns make the youngsters worse. The fielding sucks because there's no confidence. There's no mana. There's no funky strike rates here. Jess Kerr's the best slugger, and she's got a strike rate of 126. She's the only White Ferns batter with a strike rate over 120 in T20s. There's no funk there. There's no vitality in how the White Ferns are playing their cricket. And your best players aren't really doing much. T20 series, Amelia Kerr, she's averaging 10 with the bat. As I said, Sophie Devine isn't taking a wicket. Jess Kerr's not taking a wicket. Fran Jonas just isn't getting any better. She's getting worse. Like, all of this is happening as the White Ferns continue to ignore the best cricketers in New Zealand. This is happening as the White Ferns are 5-9 in ODIs since the start of 2023. They are 7-14 in T20 internationals since the start of 2023. That's a 0.5 win-loss ratio in T20s, and it's a 0.55 win-loss ratio in ODIs since the start of 2023. So the White Ferns, in both formats, they're losing twice as many games as they win. This is what makes the White Ferns the most concerning New Zealand sports team. This is why we talk about the White Ferns stinking. Because they are losing and they are getting rolled, players aren't performing, players aren't getting better, and they just completely neglect the foundation that is like the foundations of cricket in New Zealand. There is no correlation between domestic cricket and White Ferns cricket. They neglect the best players in New Zealand. All these decisions like the Ben Sawyer persistence, persisting with Georgia Plymouth, persisting with Molly Penfold, persisting with Fran Jonas. The proof is in the pudding now. Like, they're not doing a whole lot. So whatever faith you showed in them 2 years ago, you as the coach, you're not even getting the best out of the players you selected over the best players in New Zealand. And this is why we are talking about the White Ferns at the start of this podcast. Because people need to know how bad they are. People need to know how bad Ben Sawyer is as a White Ferns cricket coach. People need to know that whatever the women's cricket pipeline is doing in New Zealand, it isn't working not because there's not enough good women's players. Like, there's a whole lot of talent. Like, the youngsters are awesome, domestic cricket's awesome, but there's a kink in the hose there. There's a kink in the hose between domestic cricket and White Ferns cricket. And that kink is designed by the coach. And I have tried to open up to their perspective. Because they might win a few games, they might win a few series. And I was like catching the vibe, and that's why I do the deep dives that I've done over the last few years, because you could see what was happening, but there was still just enough wins to really like, all right, we'll see how we go the next tour. Here we are, they're 0-7 of a tour of England. They can't even win a game. They can't even compete. And it's kind of embarrassing, especially when you're getting swept by England. Like, we've voiced our appreciation of England sport at the top of the show. So it obviously fills me with joy that a New Zealand team is being swept by England. But I feel like it's necessary. Like, maybe things have to get this bad just to get some sort of change. I don't know. But White Ferns are 0-7. Nothing's happening. There's some crazy stats. Like ODIs, T20s. There's bowling averages over 100. There's batting averages of 0.5. There's not right now, but there was. There's international caliber players averaging 10, 11, 12, 13 with the bat. That's how they earn their selection. The one player who might earn selection, who like genuinely deserves a promotion to the White Ferns, Michaela Gregg, what does she do? Nothing. She's not playing. And even if she was playing, what happened with Kate Anderson? 4 games in a weaker format, see you later. Like, this stuff has been happening monthly for the last 4 years with the White Ferns. It happened under Bob Carter. Now it's happening under Ben Sawyer. And unfortunately, the only common factor there is that Sophie Devine's the captain. So now we have to get into that little niggly pocket. This is the dramatic losing story that news outlets are built upon. But you won't find it there. It's a very strange situation. Meanwhile, we're fascinated by the Euros.
Yeah, there's so many angles on this White Ferns thing. I could almost say all of them are just angles of neglect too, where it's like for a long time, they were an okay competitive enough team because they had three or four world-class players who could win them games. And there was a lot of stuff like people, we knew this at the time, like they were overly reliant on if Amy Satterthwaite or Susie Bates or Sophie Devine has a big game, they do really well. If they don't, they lose because they do not get players from outside that world-class group stepping up. Amelia Kerr came in and joined that world-class group, but then they had like 2 or 3 years where, Bates was out injured for a while, Devine was away from the team for a bit. Kerr herself was away from the team for a little bit, and then Satterthwaite ultimately gets squeezed out and retires. Um, right at the start of the Bob Sawyer era, am I right on that as well? The Satterthwaite retirement?
Yeah, you did a nice job of confusing Bob Carter and Ben Sawyer because you said Bob Sawyer, but I actually like it.
Oh, did I? Yeah.
I actually really like it's the Bob Sawyer era of just shitty cricket.
Well, Bob Carter didn't really go anywhere either, did he? Like he was a terrible White Ferns coach and lost his job so that he could kind of get a promotion in the pecking order and now be the boss of the coaches, like the technical um high performance type guy, whatever that role is called. But he didn't do a lot of high performance driving as the White Ferns coach. And I've done a little bit of research on this on Ben Sawyer. And before I roll through some stuff that I found, like what was the when they hired him, did they like big up his like his because he was coming across from the Australia, he was like an assistant with the Australian team, am I right? So that was kind of the extent of it, right? When they hired him, is that true? Just saying like, or is that the impression you got as well? So it was like, well, he's coming from the best team in the world, so we're sort of like we're latching on to one of their geniuses.
Yeah, and then it was closely followed by the spin guru Craig Howard, who made every white fin spinner worse, who's also an Australian.
Well, what if I told you that Ben Sawyer has a record as a head coach of making every team worse that he coaches with?
Hit me.
Because I've done a little, I've looked into some of this, and like he's coached in IPL, he's coached in the 100, he's coached in the what do you call them, the Big Bash. His last season with the Big Bash, he coached the Sydney Sixers, I think it was, to last place. They had a 4-9 record and they lost their last 6 games in a row. His last season with Royal Challengers Bangalore, he coached them to second to last, but only because of a slightly better net run rate than whichever team GG is. I don't know which team, the Gujarat or one of them. RCB had a 2-6 record that season. He took Birmingham win the 100 their last season there. They were 0-7 with a no result from their 8 games. They finished last, and every other team had at least 2 wins, so it wasn't even close. I don't know what happened in the 100, but I do know that the Sydney Sixers, after finishing last with Ben Sawyer, the next season they made the final. And I know that Royal Challengers Bangalore, after finishing second to last with Ben Sawyer, the next season they won the women's IPL. That was this year, 2024. So he did have some affiliation with the Australian cricket team, which was already the best team in the world before he joined them. So at least he didn't make them that much worse. That's
I think
cool.
he was just an assistant coach as well, to the best of my
knowledge. Yeah, you're not getting all of the credit there as an assistant too. So I think I saw in his thing they said he was like the fast bowling coach or something. So there's not a lot of fast bowling coaching going on with the White Ferns right now. But basically everywhere where he's been the head coach, his teams have lost massively, like massively and consistently. And he's just doing the same thing with the White Ferns. But the silver lining to that cloud is that few of those teams have gotten way better as soon as he's left. So maybe that's what we're hoping for with the White Ferns is the Ben Sawyer, the absence bounce, the rebound after him.
Just need to get rid of him first.
Just need to get rid of him first. Yeah, you can't get the bounce. You can't get the rebound as he's going on.
I don't see him going anywhere in the short-term future because everyone seems to be scared or they don't care. Can we play a bit of stat trivia just quickly with the White Ferns?
Always love a bit of stat trivia, although maybe less so in the White Ferns context.
What mark would you put? Like Matty Green is averaging below this number in each series against England of this tour. What number are you going to put that average at?
Well, if I say 100, I know I'll win, but I think I'll probably still win if I say 15.
I mean, it's correct, but let's go 12.5.
Hey.
Georgia Plummer, who I actually really like as a cricketer. Maybe she hasn't actually done anything to warrant selection in the White Ferns, and if you haven't done anything to warrant selection for the New Zealand national team, you might struggle when you're playing the best teams in the world. Like that seems how sporting selections go. You do a bit of stuff at the tier below, you earn your selection, you get promoted. I haven't seen Georgia Plummer actually do that, nor have I seen many White Ferns, to be honest, because we know the White Ferns don't do a lot in domestic cricket. Georgia Plummer, she's averaging 6 in this T20 series. What did she average in the ODI series?
The ODI series. Yeah. I mean, Plymouth's a weird case because I really like her as a cricketer too. And there was that she scored like a big 100 in the one day
HBJ.
comp, I think it must have been. Yeah, in the HBJ. Which felt like the innings where it's like, yeah, now she's done something to boost her up into the White Ferns, except she'd already played like 20 plus times by then. You waited, it's too late by then. And yeah, let's not also forget the fact they just chuck her into open against England. It's hard enough going in that situation with all the stuff we've been talking about as a young player trying to be successful before you've even really like crafted your game fully, and then you can just open the batting against a swinging new ball and sweet ass. Let's see how that goes. So I'm guessing in the ODIs she averaged not much more, potentially even less. Oh, and I think she got one or two 20 odds. So we'll say about 15 for her as well.
Ooh, close. 13.
Okay.
I'm just looking at some of these strike rates, like Georgia Plummer, strike rate of 60. Now that Matty Green, White Ferns veteran, strike rate of 60. Georgia Plummer, strike rate of 70. Wowee. I did mention Izzy Gaze. Izzy Gaze is averaging 11.6 in the T20 series. What did Izzy Gaze average in the ODI series?
4. Can't remember doing anything.
5.3.
Oh, I went unders.
Amelia
Well,
Kerr. She bowled 16 overs alongside Molly Penfold, busiest bowlers in the series of the ODIs. These two players averaged, Amelia Kerr, Molly Penfold, 16 overs each. Busiest bowlers for the White Ferns, they averaged over what number?
28.
90.
38. 90. Okay. All right.
Penfold
It'd be pretty hard to get that one wrong in hindsight.
Penfold averaged 92. Amelia Kerr averaged 102. ODI series. 8 bowlers used. How many bowlers conceded less than 5 RPO?
None?
1. Hannah Rowe. Shout out Hannah Rowe. She's okay.
Hey.
She's doing okay in this series. Similar question. Let's go. We've got 9 bowlers have been used in the T20 series. How many have conceded less than 7 RPO?
I'm gonna guess none again.
That is correct. 0. Who, out of those 9 bowlers, is the most economical White Ferns bowler of this T20 series?
The most economical. I almost want to say a trick thing and say like Susie Bates because she hasn't bowled, but who's, yeah, I don't know. Is Hannah Rose still playing these ones?
Yes, but it's the one and only Lee Kasprick who gets thrown into all sorts of shitty roles.
Hey, what do you know?
As one of the 11 best cricketers from New Zealand. Last one here. I said before, 3 batters averaging over 20 in the T20 series. Who has the highest batting average for the White Ferns in this T20 series against England? And you can have a guess at what that average is.
Susie Bates, 24.
Susie Bates is averaging 25.2, but someone has a higher average.
Sophie Devine, 26.
Sophie Devine is averaging 24.
Hey.
The highest batting average for the White Ferns in the T20 series against England, the one and only Leah Tahuhu. She's got the highest average and she's got the most wickets. So shout out to Leah Tahuhu.
Fewest contracts, though.
Fewest contracts, that's for sure. But again, contracts don't really matter. So the best player in the ODI series was Brooke Halliday with bat and ball. The best player in the T20 series, it's not Leah Tahuhu because she's only got 26 runs at an average of 26. But it might be Leah Tahuhu. What is the... this isn't the end of the stats trivia has come and passed.
I got one I'll throw back at you after you finish this.
Well, I think I was about to throw it to you for the Ben Sawyer tally.
Okay, well, that's what it was going to be, so we'll carry on.
Carry on.
All right, then when was the last time Ben Sawyer had a winning season as a head coach?
Maybe 2022?
It was the 2018-19 Women's Big Bash with the Sydney Sixers, where they were 10-4. Following his first 4 seasons head coaching the Sydney Sixers, he was there for quite a while. I think it's 7 years. Were actually awesome. Like he was 8-6 in his first year. They finished third. 9-5 in 2016-17. They finished first and were champions. 10-4, 2017-18, finished first and were champions. 2018-19, 10-4, finished first and were runners-up, beaten in the final. A lot of Elise Perry through all of those stats, just absolutely dominating everything through that era and beyond. Also, as we get into everything that he's done since, which is 3 seasons in the 100, didn't have a winning record in any of them. 1 season in the IPL, had a losing record, and 3 other seasons with the Sixers where he had 2 even records and a losing record where he came last. Also a lot of Sophie Devine in those teams. And Susie Bates pops up fairly often as well. Including, I think he's still with the Birmingham Phoenix, whose season starts next week. So I guess he just stays in England with a few of those players and continues to get paid for losing coaching losses of cricket. Maybe it'll be interesting to see how the Phoenix go, because maybe they'll be good. Who knows? But they were 0-7 last season under Ben Sawyer, so we'll see.
Shout out to Ben Sawyer, because he keeps getting a lot of jobs despite losing. And if, I don't know, you hear a lot about like all that matters is winning for a coach. Like, if Ben Sawyer was an NRL coach, he wouldn't be an NRL coach, you know? He might not be a rugby league coach.
He'd be a commentator by now.
Or he fails upwards, so he might, get a high performance gig somewhere like
You get Origin before, yeah.
Righto, speaking of Birmingham, the Birmingham Bears have been graced with the services of the one and only Zak Foulkes. Zak Foulkes has now played 4 games for the Birmingham Bears in the T20 Blast. He's got a wicket in each game, 4 wickets at an average of 25, 9 RPO. He also banged a 6 in his first game, I believe, but he hasn't batted too much for the Birmingham Bears. Birmingham Bears are first in the North group of the T20 Blast, and I actually slipped up with the Zak Foulkes introduction to the T20 Blast, but it's been good to catch up with how Zak Foulkes has been tracking in the T20 Blast. And I wrote this yesterday in our newsletter. Zak Foulkes, he's averaging less than 25 with the ball in each format below the Black Caps, and his best average is in T20 cricket. He's averaging 8.9 with a 7.4 RPO in T20 cricket. So he has now gone to the T20 Blast, where he's joined Nathan Smith as the main youngster. Nathan Smith did have a nice batting innings a few games ago. Hasn't bowled a lot recently, so he might be injured. He's also been in and out of the first 11. But he's got 144 runs, average of 24, a strike rate of 132. With the ball, he's got 8 wickets, average of 30, RPO of 8.3. Also got Jimmy Neesham. Jimmy Neesham's just scoring lots of runs in the T20 Blast, so shout out to him. And I was thinking, this is another couple of paragraphs I deleted for the newsletter yesterday. Because like, obviously we had the big Black Caps contract situation. And at the same time, there's always a lot of NRL top 30 yarns. Who's in our top 30? How do we get a spot in our top 30? Who's been promoted? Who's been excluded? And then someone who is not in the top 30, someone who doesn't have an NRL development contract, they play a game. And you're like, well, everyone's tripping about the top 30 contracts and who does or doesn't have a development contract, and someone who has no contract plays NRL. So you wonder, what is the importance of the contract? What's the importance of worrying about who's in your top 30 if people from outside your top 30 consistently play in the NRL? Same thing for the Black Caps contracts, as we've talked a lot about. The thing, and we can segue into the Warriors after this, the thing the organization needs is enough funding and investment and avenues to support the players outside that tier. So New Zealand cricket, they need to do things, and there was a little New Zealand Herald premium yarn, which I read through an alternative means.
You bought a newspaper?
Nah, there's websites that you can hit up to get
yeah.
behind the paywall. Obviously, no paywalls at the NicheCache and better content. There was a yarn on the Herald about like, these young players should have got a New Zealand cricket contract. Right. It's like, it doesn't matter, bro. It doesn't matter. Some of those players have already played for the Black Caps. Some of them are going to play for the Black Caps ahead of the dudes who have contracts. There's no relevance at all. But the thing that I'm saying here is that New Zealand cricket, they might facilitate Zak Foulkes and Nathan Smith playing in England. They might. Obviously, the player has to seek out their own deals, and it's kind of separate to New Zealand cricket. But the Players Association, New Zealand cricket, they might just help it happen. Because Tim Robinson, Dean Foxcroft, Mitch Hay, they've been in India, working on some stuff in India. There's, what do we have? Will O'Rourke, Muhammad Abbas, Mitch Hay, they all played for New Zealand A against Australia A. Like, you get some match payments there, but most importantly, you get experience. So this idea that the contracts determine New Zealand cricket's investment in the next generation, the new wave of Black Caps, is completely false. Because New Zealand cricket, they are able to fund players outside their Black Caps contract getting experience, playing A cricket, and various development camps they might go on. So in both the Black Caps and the Warriors, or an NRL team, you need to be able to support the players outside the 20-odd Black Caps contracts, the top 30. So the value of those contracts to us as fans isn't very high because those organizations are developing players outside those contracts. But key point, the idea that New Zealand cricket is neglecting young players by not giving them a Black Caps contract is completely false, because those players are developing. They're playing cricket. They're getting paid. Like, there's all sorts of other things New Zealand cricket can do to boost those players up. But that's just
And on the flip side is you've got a bunch of young White Ferns players who have been given contracts who are not being looked after or developed or shown. They're getting the contracts that argument is asking for, and it's a little bit of a poison chalice in that case.
Righto, the Warriors didn't have a game in the NRL. They had a bye. So we're talking about on Thursday, the old goofy NRL goofiness. The Warriors are now 3 points outside the top 8. They've moved up to 12th thanks to their bye. And the Warriors are on 19 points. The Seagulls are 7th on 23 points. So if the Warriors just got a bye right now, they might be in the top 8. They won't be, I don't think, but they might be. You never know, because there is a lot of NRL goofiness that people need to be open to, and we'll see how the Warriors go against the Raiders on Friday night. Big game, because the Raiders are a spot ahead of the Warriors on the ladder. The Warriors did play in New South Wales Cup, though. They had a win there, and in Jersey Flegg, they had a loss to the Parramatta Eels. New South Wales Cup win against the Eels. Jersey Flegg lost to the Eels. Couple of interesting notes about the New South Wales Cup win. Well, for starters, they scored 7 tries in the second half and the Parramatta Eels scored none. So that was part of a pretty epic comeback victory for the New South Wales Cup Warriors. But my key nugget here is that Nana Tatafu Vake started at centre. So 3 of the 5 outside backs for the Warriors, along with Motu Pasikala and Sio Kelly, they're all under 18s. So they all, I think they all played SG ball earlier in the season. Obviously, we've seen Sio Kelly and Motu Pasikala step up to New South Wales Cup level. But I'm always talking about the forwards, the young forwards. There's a lot of under-19 forwards, a lot of under-21. Like, you've got Makai Tafua, who's an under-21s hooker. Caleb Laban was an under-21s player coming off the bench. A little bit of hooker in this game, but you've also got Jacob Auloa, who's SG ball eligible at the start of this year. But in this game, we had 3 out of the 5 outside backs, all under 19s, all SG ball eligible. So that seems useful. Another note is that we had the young forward pack assemble. Dimitri Sifakula, Tanastawa Smith, Eddie Iramia, Zion Mai'uu, Jacob Laban, all together, which is pretty encouraging for the Warriors to have all those youngsters playing and running rampant. Obviously, the Matua Keilani going holds it all together as the lock forward. I'm always impressed with Makai Tafua. I think he's someone folks need to know about, especially because he shout out to Ngāti Warriors on Twitter. I was part of a conversation with him, and I was saying that the Makai Tafua played a full season of Fox Memorial for Otahuhu after leaving Christchurch to move up to Auckland. So Makai Tafua was playing against men in Grizzly Fox Memorial footy before stepping up this season into New South Wales Cup. He did play some New South Wales Cup last season, but that's part of the Warriors development process. And we've also got a Luke Hansen, the one and only Luke Hansen, who is one of the young Australians in the Warriors system. And of course, we've had a little bit of fun about Jet Cleary joining the Warriors and the hoopla about the Warriors signing Jet Cleary. Well, They currently have 4 playmakers in their system from Australia, and they also have Luke Hansen, who's one of those 4, but he also comes from the Panthers, you know. He also came through that pipeline. He played Harold Matthews, he played SG Ball, he played Jersey Flegg for the Panthers. And he is Jersey Flegg eligible right now. He's under 21s. And this dude has played 12 games. He's scored 5 tries. He's had 5 forced dropouts. He's had 7 try assists. He's had 8 line break assists. He's tackling at 90%. He's got 74 run meters. And he's doing another little development note here. I think his first 4 games, he had less than 100 kicking meters. As he grew into New South Wales Cup footy, he had 8 consecutive games, including last weekend's game, with over 100 kick meters. So nice, like these little development wrinkles are evident if you check into what the Warriors juniors are up to. That is to say, when I'm talking about kicking and I'm talking about the Warriors playmakers, there's an under 21 half from the Panthers who is starting halfback for the Warriors in New South Wales Cup, and he's a winner. He's won 67% of his games this season. So he's doing all right, and he's just someone I want folks to tap in with. Like there's all these everyone knows Leotawa, Sifakula, Maiu, Laban, Mawala Graham Taufa, Sio Kelly, Motu Pasikala, Makaya Tafua. Like there's so much young talent there with the Warriors, but there's also Luke Hansen, who is a young half from the Panthers system. Like if you just look through a checklist of what I want from a young Aussie recruit to the Warriors, Luke Hansen has it all. He's playing up age groups for the Panthers. He's currently playing up an age group in New South Wales Cup for the Warriors. He's registering consistent kicking meters. He's scoring tries. He's making tackle breaks. He's making his tackles. He's playing for a winning team, you know. These are all basic checklist things that I am looking for, and I am very impressed with what Luke Hansen is up to with the Warriors in New South Wales Cup. He might be the starting half next season in New South Wales Cup ahead of Jet Cleary. But of course, there were no headlines about the Warriors signing Luke Hansen as there were for Jet Cleary. So watch out for Luke Hansen. Pretty solid half and a good Warriors New South Wales Cup team. The Warriors are now 4th in New South Wales Cup. They have a bye coming up this week. And yeah, there's always lots of Kiwi NRL stuff happening in the junior ranks. We might touch on that in a jiffy, but I also whipped up a Kiwi squad in our newsletter yesterday. So if you've got any Warriors points you want to throw at me before we slide into that Kiwi squad?
Not particularly, other than to say that the Dragons did them a favor, beating the Broncos on Saturday night, I think it was. It was after the All Blacks game. Beat the Broncos only just, almost blew a big lead, but that allowed the Warriors to scoop up ahead of the Broncos and up one spot on the table. So, you know.
But the Dragons are also ahead of the Warriors.
Yeah, but that's potentially more of a temporary thing. The Broncos are the team I'd be more afraid of, but you know, we'll see. I kind of fear the Dragons will sneak into the top 8 but draw the Roosters in the first round and lose by 60 points like they've done every other time they played the Roosters this year. But we'll see, because it's more than just 8th place that's been played for. Like we talked about this last week, like where there's borderline 5 through 13 is all interchangeable at this point on the table. There's a lot of top 8 shuffling to be done. And this game, I guess game against the Raiders coming up is a big part of that, because you got 2 teams who are only just outside the top 8. You don't get those points back if you lose them. So it's a big game for both teams there.
Oh man, you're a bit down on the Dragons there. Like they show up with some good intensity, good effort, and that's more that can be said about some other NRL teams. So I'd be more optimistic about what the Dragons can do in the finals than what the Broncos can do, because You know, you can be talented and not step up to play in the NRL. I mean, that happens. So,
Yeah,
and that's what the
I'll take
Broncos
that.
are up to.
I'll take that.
The Christian Tuipulotu probably. I'm talking about Aotearoa Kiwis, so it's also important to highlight like Christian Tuipulotu is probably going to play for Tonga, and he should be a starting winger, I reckon, for Tonga. So he's doing good stuff. Otahuhu Jr. from Auckland. And it's a pretty tricky time to whip up a Kiwis squad because we've got players out injured, and I had to battle between like picking the squad for right now, and if I'm picking the squad for right now, Joey Manu's still here, right? But if we're playing end of year test, Joey Manu's he might be off to Japanese rugby before then. So it's a bit tricky. But with Shans Nickel-Clockstar out injured, I've got Keanu Kinney as the fullback. My wingers are Jermaine Saka, Ronaldo Mulatalo. And I've tried to keep the core that defeated Australia 30-0. Let's say it again. The Kiwis who defeated Australia 30-0 last year. Tried to keep that core together. And as we know, that team only had one player from the Warriors, which was Shans Nickel-Clockstar. And I've repeated that dose because I've got Maratini Akore as edge forward, because Isaiah Papali'i is currently out injured. So again, that's another update, the current day update. Centres, Joey Manu, Matthew Tomoko. Halves, Jerome Hughes, Kieran Foran, who's earned his spot. Middles, Fisher Harris, Tapane Leota. Edges, Niokore. That's going to be diabolical for the Aussie commentators, Nakora and Niokore. Hooker, Brandon Smith. Brandon Smith gets the hooker spot because Jeremy Marshall-King's out injured. Another update there. Bench, I've got Dylan Brown on my bench. I think he's still top 17 for the Kiwis. Foran's playing better right now. Dylan Brown's a pretty good utility. Then the rest of the bench, Asafa Solomona, Leo Thompson, and Griffin Neem. In my squad, we've also got Aaron Clark, Scott Sorensen, Xavier Willison, Nofahu White, Jordan Rickey, Will Warbrick, Dean Mariner, Rocco Berry. I want Aaron Clark in the Kiwis. And this is a nice little tie-in with the NRL because the Titans won again. So since I expressed my desire to see Keanu Kinney, Kieran Foran, and Aaron Clark winning with the Titans, they've started to win. So that's pretty cool.
All you had to do was ask.
All I had to do was ask. Aaron Clark has genuine, like, international Aotearoa Kiwis ceiling forecast ability. He's playing prop right now. He's a small forward, very fast, very mobile. Could get a bench spot ahead of Dylan Brown in this context because he can cover hooker. But he deserves to be in the mix. He's also eligible for Samoa. I think he's already played for Samoa. So that's interesting. If Joey Manu isn't playing, if he's not available, right now, I'm putting Dean Mariner into centre. Dean Mariner is also eligible for Samoa. I think he's eligible for a few different nations, not Australia. And I would have Dean Mariner at centre because you do want to get him into the Kiwis ASAP just so he can see all the eligibility stuff maybe. And Rocco Berry's out injured. So like, I don't think Dean Mariner's in great form with the Broncos. But if we're like Nickel-Clockstar's out injured, Joey Manu may or may not be available with Japanese rugby. Rocco Berry's out injured right now. I think Dean Mariner deserves a centre spot there, which would mean that this Kiwis team has Keanu Kinney at fullback, Dean Mariner at centre. You got Leo Thompson, Griffin Neem as youngsters in the forward pack. Then you've also got Xavier Willison, Nofahu White, those type of characters. I think Xavier Willison, he's already a Cook Island international, but I think he may also be eligible for Tonga. Just need to do a quick Google search. See if we can find anything here. Yes, this is how glorious research is done. I don't know. But he's definitely a hearty Waikato Aotearoa Kiwis eligible player. So I'm going to have him in the squad, but he might be eligible for Tonga, who knows. He deserves to be in the squad as well. So we've got a nice little coverage there. And this is top tier Aotearoa Kiwis. This isn't like a development crew. There's a lot of development players in the mix who are also going to be eligible for Samoa, Tonga, Cook Islands as well. And this leads me to like, what is Stacey Jones up to? Because he's the Kiwis coach. And last year, Michael Maguire, when he was Kiwis coach, there were so many stories about him meeting with players, getting around the eligible players, checking in. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're considering playing for the Kiwis. By all accounts, Michael Maguire did a lot of work behind the scenes to drive that Kiwis team forward, make sure the players were engaged, and sussing out those eligibility grey areas. I really hope Stacey Jones is doing the same stuff so the Kiwis can build on it. But that's my best attempt at a Kiwis squad right now. Last year, Nofahu White, Keanu Kenny, and Wiremu Greg were part of the Kiwis squad. Nofahu White was 18th man for the 30-0 victory over Australia. And both of them are still there. Like Nofahu White has had some fantastic patches of form with the Roosters this season. Not so much Wiremu Greg. He's, the Eels suck. He's not getting a lot of game time. So he's kind of slipped out of that Kiwis squad mixer. And I'd rather have Aaron Clark, to be honest. I'd rather have Xavier Willison right now. But the youngsters who earned selection in the Kiwis squad last year, Kinney, White, they have kicked on this season. They got the Kiwis development boost. So shout out to them.
Yeah, right on. That's and again, that's a extremely strong squad with a lot of good youngsters, a lot of good veterans that mix between it without basically any Warriors presence. And the Warriors were good last year, and the Warriors have been occasionally good this year, and up and down and all over the place. But there's strong caliber players in that group who might kick on and force a case over the rest of the season. If the Warriors make the top 8, that's probably a very good chance. But it's also proof that the Kiwis don't need that. Like, there's depth that goes way beyond what's going on at the Warriors, even though there's a lot going on at the Warriors.
And we've seen it a few years now. Like, the Warriors defeated Tonga at Mount Smart Stadium with the Kiwis defeated Tonga at Mount Smart Stadium with no Warriors in the team. Then we go last year, Kiwis defeat Australia with Sean Snooker-Klokstad, the only Warriors player in the Kiwis team, Kiwis squad. And roll through the team. Okay, like, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, he's a good winger. He's not better than Asako. He's not better than Molitalo. And he also has stated he wants to honour some whānau stuff to represent Tonga. That's cool. But I don't even think he's better than Will Warbrick. So I'm not selecting Watene-Zelezniak. Who else do we have? Adam Pompey's not quite at that level. I've got Rocco Berry in the mix, but he's out injured. Sean Johnson. He's not better than Hughes, Kieran Foran. So he's not starting there. And the Kiwis are winning with Hughes and Dylan Brown in the halves, so I'm not worried about Sean Johnson. Chanel Harris-Tavita could be in the mix, but I don't think he's playing at a high enough level right now for the Kiwis. He can still pursue Samoa. Tohu Harris is too old. And a lot of those youngsters, they're not playing consistent NRL. Leotawa, Sifakula, Maiu'u, Laban. They've got a lot of eligibility choices there themselves, but they're not, these dudes. Aaron Clark is playing at a high level every single week in the NRL. Keanu Kinney strings together multiple games. He didn't start at fullback on the weekend, but he's stringing together games at a very high level. Matthew Tomoko starts every game as centre for the Raiders. It's not like, he's there one week and then he's out next week. No, he starts every single game. Any other Warriors I'm missing? Kiwis eligible?
Well, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck could go close.
He'd go close. I'm not selecting him ahead of Manu or Tomoko. And he might also pursue Samoa. Like now seems like a good time for Tuivasa-Sheck to pursue representing Samoa. So that's part of my equation. But I've always big upped Tuivasa-Sheck's work this season, right? Like I've talked about how important his meters, his post contact meters, his tackling is. Everyone's looking for the highlights plays, and he's doing the hard mahi instead, which apparently isn't good enough for people. Like, pick one, to be honest.
Well, it's not if people don't look for it and don't see it, yeah.
Yeah, but he's not playing better than Tomoko. And do you select, like, we're recording this on Tuesday, and it's going to be fascinating to see what happens for the Warriors team list, because I've kind of perused around some websites, and some of the coverage has been like, Nickel Krokstad's out injured, Tuivasa-Sheck is likely to start at fullback. Is he? Because Taine Tuapiki is pretty good at fullback. And when Andrew Webster has had that choice to make, he has selected Taine Tuapiki. And when Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has talked about those positions, he has said, I am playing centre. But people create this like fantasy world where Tuivasa-Sheck's the fullback, he's the winger, he's the prop. Like he's selected in all these other positions except the position he's actually playing. And I think the best thing for Tuivasa-Sheck, especially when you consider the strengths and the traits of these players, like Tuapiki has speed, he's got zip, he's a live wire. That's what the Warriors need. Tuivasa-Sheck is very similar to Nickel Krokstad in the sense that they are workhorse fullbacks. I think the Warriors right now, they need speed. They need excitement, X factor, razzle dazzle, and I believe that's what Taine Tuapiki offers. Could be made to look extremely dumb though. Extremely silly when the team lists are named later on today. But I am curious at that decision, because Nickel Krokstad seems to be out injured for this upcoming game. And I reckon it's Taine Tuapiki's moment to make a compelling case that that job is his ahead of Tuivasa-Sheck.
Yeah, well, it will be an interesting team lineup considering some of the injury dramas and then also the fact you're coming off a bye as well and have actually had time to like sort of step back and analyze things. But I suppose we don't want to put egg on our face by predicting things ahead of time when people will probably already know what the lineup is by the time they hear the podcast. So it might just gently pump the brakes on that one, I suppose.
I'll gently pump the brakes, but I will highlight that it has been interesting to observe that situation. Because Webster, Tuivasa-Sheck, they talk about him playing centre. The Warriors have Nickel Krokstad fullback. They've got a backup fullback in Taine Tuapiki, who did a fantastic job in the games he's played. But the external noise is about Tuivasa-Sheck playing fullback. It's like, is that just what you want to see? Or is that something that is likely to happen? Because
or is he just filling in the spotlight while Sean Johnson's unavailable and people can't focus on him instead?
That seems like the most likeliest scenario. At the top of the New Zealand football tree, let's go with a Manuka tree of Aotearoa football, we have the Football Ferns and Ollie Whites, the under-23 men's team preparing for the Olympics. Now, the Football Ferns had a 1-1 draw with Zambia over the weekend. What did you make of that performance from the Football Ferns under coach Michael Main? Gucci Mane?
Well, I'll tell you what was obvious right from the start is that he seemed to get a bit of a tune out of him that we have seen under Kumkova, but not seen consistently under Kumkova. So, I mean, we haven't seen enough stuff under Michael Main to be able to say whether that's consistent either. And obviously, there's reasons to to be at your best leading into a an Olympic tournament, but I was pretty encouraged by the way they started that game, and then were able to maintain that for a lot of the way by really, really showing intent and jumping into tackles and pressing high on the Zambian defense and their goalkeeper in particular at a couple shaky moments that Zambia were a little bit fortunate not to concede from one or two of those instances throughout the game as well, like first half, second half, early, late, they kept it up nice and consistently throughout. It's sloppy at times with their passing. That kind of comes with the territory with the football ferns. We don't have a team of like world-class Spaniards or whatever who can just everyone on the field plays like a central midfielder. We don't have that. Even our central midfielders will struggle with that stuff sometimes. So there were some passes that went astray, but the intent was pretty good. And early on, it looked like they were a little bit too. I almost feel like this is a lack of belief issue rather than anything else. A bit too reliant on crosses, like just the first opportunity to put the ball in the box, let's do that. But like you don't have anyone who's going to win a header up there, so what's the point? But as the game progressed, they started to like Millie Clegg was making some nice channel runs and showing a level of just being able to impact the game in a number of ways, which shows why she is probably now a first 11 player and why they've chosen her ahead of Hannah Wilkinson. There was a case to be said that Hannah Wilkinson would have been pretty useful off the bench for the last 20 of this game, chasing a winner, but so it goes. You also saw instances of why Millie Clegg, though, hasn't been considered a first 11 player despite a very obvious, enormous potential. Why she hasn't been a first 11 player up till this point. It's because a little bit sloppy at times, a little bit like shoved around at times, but that's to be expected. That's the roller coaster you have when you give that kind of role to an 18-year-old player. And I thought on the whole, the main thing I'm looking for from a young striker is just how often can you impact the game? Like how many moments do you have throughout the game? If you miss a few chances, we'll cop that, but are you at least getting creating enough for yourself and others and just staying involved? And she did, definitely. I thought that was pretty impressive from her. And a good solid performance from the football ferns, but with some caveats. Like they conceded early in the second half, which was just it shouldn't have been a free kick. I'm not sure what the foul was for, but the free kick was just curled in towards the back post and no one challenged a header and they powered it in for 1-0. They got caught on the break a couple times towards the end. Particularly after Rachel Kundananji and Barbara Banda came on, who are the two most expensive players in women's football history. Both transfers to the NWSL, interestingly, of recent times. So,
Are they in Zambia's team?
yeah, Zambia has the two most expensive women footballers of all time. And they started on the bench because I think they're trying not to risk them because they're mid-season. They might have a few knocks from NWSL. So they only played half an hour or so each. But when they came on, our defense looked pretty shaky, especially because we made a couple of subs at the same time. Like Michaela Moore came on for Rebecca Stott. And Moore's a good player, but she's not quick. And she turns slow and up against some of those, like against two lightning fast and strong attackers, world-class players that look sketchy on one or two times. However, we also at a similar time brought on an elite, and an elite is very good at rushing off her line and cleaning up some of that stuff. So she actually bailed us out a couple of times. Two excellent saves to, not to preserve the clean sheet, we'd already conceded one, but to preserve at least a good result. So Zambia are also going to the Olympics, same as us, but they were also in the bottom pool, like the bottom pot for seeding, same as us. So it's two of the lowest ranked teams that are going to the Olympics, which means this game will be obviously not easier is the wrong word, but this game will be less daunting than the three they're going to face in the actual tournament. So it gets tougher from here. But yeah, they could have won. They created enough chances to where maybe they should have won. Same old issues with not quite being able to put them away or players not quite being in the right spot at the right time, but with more promise than we usually see from them. So overall I was pretty encouraged by that. I don't know they'll be able to repeat that against the teams we're playing in Paris, but it was encouraging. And I especially liked the fact they did seem very fired up. They did seem very like tactically cohesive, and it'd be rewriting history to say we never saw that under Yekukungpova. But I think in light of the fact that Yekukungpova lost the dressing room and now an assistant takes over and the team looks very fired up and fighting for each other and all this, that does still seem a relevant point. Like we saw it at times under Klimkova, but we didn't see it maybe enough under Klimkova, and we've seen it here in this game. Hopefully that carries on throughout the tournament, where they will have to play different styles of games against Canada and France in particular, where they're going to have to be a lot more defensive and conservative. But I actually think that suits us better anyway. So, so it goes.
So you're alluding to the biggest change under Coach Michael Main being one of intensity, fizz, energy, as opposed to anything tactically?
Yeah, I think that's what we saw. I mean, he did change the formation because he had the previous tour as well as interim. He did change the formation for that to a 4-4-2, but also we saw them play a 4-4-2 when they beat Norway at the World Cup. So that's not a new thing. That's not something we never saw under Klimkova. And I think it was always likely something to you're not going to play the same way against the Oceania teams in qualifying as you are against, say, defending Olympic champions Canada in the actual main event. So I don't think that was like I think that was it was a change from the coach, but it was a change that I think would have happened anyway. I don't see that as being a specific Michael Main thing, but I did it's early days, it's small sample size stuff, but there was evidence there that the team was fizzed in a way that that was a step up from perhaps what we've seen in a couple of years. Like if they played this way in the second game against Vietnam, couple weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, I think they'd have won that game instead of being caught drawing 0-0. But also that's the development of players and the evolution of the squad and stuff. Those factors come into this as well. We didn't see India Paige Riley, Grace Jale, or Macy Fraser, all of whom were rested just because they had little injury issues, which Fraser we knew about because she missed a couple NWSL games with an ankle injury. The other two are off season, so that's it's all just precautionary stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if all three of them come into the starting lineup. Possibly, I mean Fraser's got to. I think India Paige Riley has got to. Possibly an exception with Jale because I think Katie Kitching, who scored the goal from the penalty spot in this game, was pretty good, and wouldn't be surprised if they say, well, she's kind of offered a little bit more than Jale has in her recent performances, picking on form. That's one way to do it now that we've seen that Kitching can. She's mostly played midfield for the Ferns to this point, but we saw her on the wing here where Jale is likely to be in contention. So I think there's a bit of a decision to be made there. There might also be a bit of a decision about because it's not about whether Macy Fraser's there. If she's fit, she's starting, but it's where does she start? Because Malia Steinmetz and Kate Taylor were pretty good in that midfield. And if you're only playing two central midfielders, there's a lot to like about having two ball winning, really strong, big engine, defensive minded midfielders together in that kind of partnership. So unless you change the formation, it's a little harder to fit Macy Fraser in there. Although maybe Fraser just plays ahead of Taylor anyway, and you say Taylor's done well, but Fraser's better, and she also very underrated aspect of her game is how hard she works off the ball and how good she is at tackling and winning the ball back. She was excellent at that for the Phoenix last season, in a way which was obviously overshadowed by the free kicks and the through balls and the step overs and that kind of stuff. But she does that role as well. So there's a couple of tactical decisions to be made, but I think we've otherwise kind of know what the first 11 is, apart from potentially at one centre mid and one right mid. You can see Jackie Hand and Millie Clegg starting up front throughout the tournament. Centre backs of Katie Bowen and Rebecca Stott, Ellie Riley at left back if she's fit. She only played half a game here, but that was building her back up from injury, so I don't think that's a drama. CJ Bott obviously at right back is just astonishingly good at winning the ball. And probably an elite over Vic Essen in goal, although Vic Essen did start this game, and that is I think Leet overall is better and has nudged ahead, but Essen is not like she's going to do you wrong. She's also a very high-performing goalkeeper at the moment who's been a bit of an incumbent in recent years. So that's one of those good decisions to have to be made. All three of these are good decisions to have to be made. There's a couple of spots, but I think Leet probably has nudged ahead. So that's more or less what our um, with Indy Riley on one of the other wings as well. I didn't mention, but yeah, that's more or less what the 11 will look like for the tournament. I should think so at this stage. There are no more warm-up games, at least none that are public. So they've got another week, 7, 8, 9 days, something like that to prepare, and we'll see what they turn up with against Canada in game one.
Speaking of stepovers, I did see the Elliot Collier Aotearoa shuffle before he banged home a left foot finish in America. I'm not sure if it's the top league, but he was playing for Indy.
Yeah,
And he,
second tier.
beautiful footwork. I named it the Aotearoa shuffle because it wasn't quite the stepovers, but it was he was like running it straight, doing some movements with his feet, and I liked it. So shout out to Elliot Collier. But we also have the under 19 men's footy. They're playing in Oceania. They beat Fiji 1-0 in the semi-final. Obviously, they'll prepare for the final, and we'll be interested to see what happens there. Everyone can follow the niche cache for more coverage. But I am curious because also in our Monday newsletters, you go deep into domestic football, providing results and different bits and pieces about the club footy in Aotearoa. Is there some sort of connection you can make between some of these under 19 lads and insights, takeaways from domestic football? Like who are some of the best young lads in Aotearoa right now that might be part of this under 19 team, and what's their context in the local footy in Aotearoa? So if someone does want to get around the grounds, have a little gaze at some of the best players, who do they need to watch out for?
I'm just looking at the squad here, and there are a couple of overseas-based dudes. Like Keegan Kelly used to play for Western Springs, but he's playing somewhere in America now. Uh, James Bulkley, who was a new name, he's grew up in Australia. He's now playing in like Dubai or something weird like that. But through some connection that his Australian club had. Luca Coveney is playing for Western United. Actually, he's got a A-League contract. I'm not sure if that was a scholarship or full thing, but he's with the A-League squad there now. Well, for next season, that's a big promotion for him. Son of Vaughan, of course, used to be the all-time always leading goal scorer until Chris Wood surpassed him. But other than that, I think these are, yeah, the rest of the squad is all locally based. And a lot of them do come from the Wellington Phoenix. So you've got guys in there like Luke Supik, Gabriel Sloan Rodriguez, and Albie Kelly Heald, who have been in and around the first team. You got some of their best prospects like Tayshuan Loke. Seth Karuna-Ratner is a good defender. Loke is a sort of fullback, can play on either side. Who else is standing out there from the Knicks? Nathan Walker's pretty good. He's used to play for Fencibles, went to the Under-17 World Cup, being selected from Fencibles last year, but has moved to Wellington, as is the case with a lot of Wellington Phoenix players, as they do recruit from all around the country. It's not just Wellington. So yeah, Ryan Watson's been pretty good, playing as a number 10 as well, another Phoenix dude. Daniel McCallum on the wing, but you've also got, interestingly, a few of these. A couple of these, Fergus Gillian, I should mention as well. He's played the most minutes of anyone in the squad so far. He actually made an A-League debut briefly. It's early last season, got off the bench in a game for the Phoenix. You've also, though, got a couple of dudes here who are going to be on scholarship contracts with Auckland FC. So it's not just the Wellington Phoenix doing things. I've been really impressed by Finn McKinlay as a defensive midfielder. Tall ginger bloke and strong on the ball, strong just in general. Got a sort of good instinct for passing. I've been impressed with how he has played. I think he's been excellent. He's someone I saw a little bit for Eastern Suburbs last year in the National League, but didn't really stand out. But then, of course, he's playing under 19s here. So he's like 17 or 18 last year. You don't necessarily stand out in men's football. The fact you're playing at all is the bit that stands out. And yeah, he's been great through this tournament. And who else? There was, Adama Koulibaly as well, who's mostly played right back. He's just a natural footballer. He's mostly played right back, but from what I gather, he can pretty much play every position on the field. I think, ideally would be similar to McKinlay as like a defensive midfielder, someone who drops deep, collects the ball, and shifts it on, and maybe carries it forward a little bit. He's played a lot of fullback here, and he looks just as comfortable there as he would anywhere else. He can play centre back. He can play as a more attacking midfielder. He can probably do a job on the wing. He's just a dude who is, a natural football talent who is going to do. He's going to do well wherever they ask him to play. He's looked pretty solid himself. And there was one other, but Oliver Middleton doesn't seem to have played at all. I don't know where he's at. I'm guessing he just got injured and wasn't able to travel or hasn't been able to participate or whatever, because he hasn't been listed on any of the team sheets and he hasn't played a minute. The only other player who hasn't played a minute is Eamon McCarron, who is the backup goalkeeper. So the third choice goalkeeper. First choice goalkeeper, by the way, LB Kelly Hield, as it stands, it's also kind of the first choice goalkeeper for the Wellington Phoenix senior men's A-League squad, because they don't have anyone else after Alex Paulson left, after Jack Duncan left. LB Kelly Hield is the twin brother of Lucas Kelly Hield, so he's just as tall as him, but his height looks a bit more natural when you're playing goalkeeper versus when you're playing left back. But he saved their bacon in that semi-final. That was a pretty good performance from Fiji and a pretty tired-looking performance from the Kiwi lads, who didn't create a lot of chances in the first half. They started the second half better, scored early. Ryan Watson again, I think the third out of 4 games in which he scored it. But then Fiji started hitting them just with direct football, going, a lot of set pieces, a lot of pumping the ball forward, winning headers, and they really had the Kiwis threatened on a number of occasions there. And we were pretty lucky to avoid extra time, let alone maybe even elimination in that game. Most notably, there was a bunch of saves that LB Kelly Hield had made, and just looking nice and comfortable, good under the high ball and all this sort of stuff to help his team out. But most notably, bit of an Alex Paulson impersonation. If you're auditioning to be the Wellington Phoenix #1, you want to be following in Alex Paulson's footsteps. And LB Kelly Hield saved a penalty in this game. It was a bit of an unlucky penalty that caught just a shot that hit a hand. Guy turned his back when he shouldn't have. But LB Kelly Hield, terrible penalty actually, but he still dove the right way. He made the save, did what you got to do. Big areas from him in a very, very emphatic man of the match performance, and what was otherwise a bit of a subpar semi-final, but good enough to make the final. And the final is 2 spots for Oceania now at the Under-20 World Cup. So the final alone means they've already qualified for next year's Under-20 World Cup, but they'll try and beat New Caledonia in the final later this week. They already beat them 3-0 at the start of the tournament, so repeat that. But LB Kelly Hield definitely, if you're a Phoenix fan, being a little bit worried. I've just seen Bozidar Krajev has told them he's not coming back either, which is it's starting to feel like the writing was on the wall in that one, because if he's had a contract over this whole time, at some point you accept it or you don't, right? And if the longer that takes, the more likely you're just not going to accept it. So apparently he's not coming back. They need a new goalkeeper. They need a new centre back. They need a bunch of new import players. They need a new left winger / left midfielder. But LB Kelly Hield's put a nice audition through in these under-19s with how well he's played as a goalkeeper, looking very comfortable, very composed, and he's just got a natural frame which screams like excellent goalkeeping genes, even though his brother's a left back.
But I was disappointed when you were comparing him to Alex Paulson, but you did so for the penalties and not the passing from the back. I was building up to like,
I think he's probably good with the passing at the back. His brother is very silky, but you gotta play the hand you dealt sometimes, right? And when you're playing in this, the games are in Samoa, and I think they have 2 pitches at the place that they're playing at, and 2 pitches for a full tournament with a bunch of games over 2 weeks. You don't want too many passbacks coming your way. You got to be careful of those bobbles. They always learned that in Vanuatu a couple of weeks ago. So maybe that's an aspect of his goalkeeping, which I think is probably pretty good. Probably not as good as Paulson, but I think that I wouldn't be surprised if that's an aspect that's still strong. But this isn't the occasion to show it. So that might be a bit more of a National League. Let's see if he can get some game for the reserves, or actually FFA Cup. He'll probably play for the Phoenix then, because they're not going to have a new goalkeeper in before then. They might well sign a new goalkeeper by the time the A-League season starts, but probably not by FFA Aussie Cup, whatever it's called these days, Australia Cup, the Aussie Cup. Probably not by then. I think he'll likely get a game in that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's just, because he seems further along than I thought he was a year ago. I thought he was very good. Between last National League season and 2022 National League season, I thought he made huge strides. And so if he's continued that on, which you'd expect he has, because the goalkeeping stuff, Ruben Parker is the coach of the Wellington Phoenix, goalkeeping coach at the Wellington Phoenix. All those guys seem to improve pretty quickly, and Paulson is the gold standard there. Wouldn't be surprised if Albert Kelly-Heald is considered the backup for next season. I don't know if he'll get number one duties. I think they might bring in an import or something like that. At least that's my suspicion. But I kind of think he might just be the backup dude. I think he might have done enough to earn himself like full-time duties in that role. He already has a scholarship contract.
I think he's going to be the number one.
He might. It's definitely not out of the question.
I was going to ask you if you thought he was going to be the number one, but you don't seem to think so. I don't know anything, but I'm going to say he's the number one Phoenix goalkeeper for next season. We need to finish with some NBL finals. We got finals basketball in the NBL. What's happening this week?
This week, we have play-in games. So the top six is sorted. We had, over the last 7 days, we've polished off all the regular season stuff, squeezed out those with Canterbury Rams losing. Their winning streak ended at 16 games. Auckland Tuatara also lost. So the top two teams were both beaten. Auckland Tuatara were beaten by Hawke's Bay Hawks, who were trying very hard to score as many points as they could and get into the top six, but they missed out because the Nelson Giants, even though they lost their game, still held off in the points differential. So on Wednesday night, it will be the Taranaki Airs against the Nelson Giants in the first play-in game. The winner there advances to play first place Canterbury Rams. On Friday night, Wellington Saints and Franklin Bulls. In the second play-in game, the winner of that advances to play the Auckland Tuatara, and those games, the Rams and Tuatara games, are just straight semi-finals. Winners of those go through to the final. The timeline's a little bit skewed because you got the two play-in games within the space of 3 days, so sweet as. But then think it's Sunday is the Rams semi-final, but the Tuatara semi-final isn't until the following Wednesday, because they had some dramas with the stadium. They couldn't get the arena booked for the weekend where it would have otherwise been played on, I don't know, sometime in that week. So they spread it out a little bit, and the Tuatara, because they played on a Wednesday in their last regular season game, now have 14 days between their last regular season game and their semi-final, and then just like 3 or 4 days between the semi-final and a potential final should they progress that far. So hopefully they don't feel too rusty, but they do have a strong, experienced team, so I don't think that'll be a problem. They might actually enjoy the rest that they're getting, particularly with a couple of those dudes having come back from Tall Blacks duty, done a few frequent flyer miles there. So that's where we're at with the NBL. We got Airs versus Giants, we got Saints versus Bulls, and then we got the Rams and Tuatara waiting in the semi-finals to see, who's going to be the champion of the 2024 season.
I'm just looking at what you wrote yesterday in the Monday newsletter. You got some nice NBL statistics here. So we got Taranaki, Nelson, Wellington, Franklin, Leafa, minutes per game. He's first, so he's going to be playing for the Wellington Saints in the second play-in game. He's also first for points per game. So Isaiah Leafa goes without saying he's going to be massive in finals basketball, especially coming back from tallbacks duty where he seemed to do pretty well. The Sam Timmins, big man for Franklin, one would assume finals basketball, he's going to be massive as well. Franklin versus Wellington means we have Sam Timmins and Hiram Harris going at each other, even though Hiram Harris is doing everything. So Sam Timmins is going to be the big man for Franklin, but then you're going to have Hiram Harris running the show. Is he going to be in action, Hiram Harris?
Yeah, he's been back lately, so they've built him up a little bit. But yeah, I think he should be good to go for this, which is cool because even though he doesn't play the same position as Sam Timmins, they're probably neck and neck with rebounds. I think that's probably the stat you're looking at there, right? Which was just the thing from the from the newsletter was just the New Zealand players. So I've skipped out all the imports and whatever. But there's all these teams have important dudes like that. Like Liafa also led the entire league, not just led the Kiwi players, but led the entire league in 3-point makes as well. Just the Saints shoot a lot of threes in general. Ethan Rusbatch has come back. He's with the Franklin Bulls. He was also with that Tall Black squad, so he's back in that game. Taranaki Ayers have got the Cameron brothers. Flynn Cameron had another strong game on the weekend. He was with the Tall Blacks. Carlin Davison just scores 20 plus every game now. All of a sudden, like the second half of his season has been unreal. Remind me to look that up. Actually, I might chuck a note in the old whatchamacallums in the newsletter on Friday, which will be after that playing game has been played. Nelson's got Dan Fotu, who actually just signed a deal with I think a second tier club in Japan. So he won't be back in the NBL this season, but that's a good gig for him. His brother obviously plays in Japan as well. Zak Fotu's been there for a couple of years at a bit of a higher up club, but you gotta earn your dues, you gotta work your way up. And Dan Fotu's had a strong season with the Nelson Giants. He gets a lot of those point paints. He gets a lot of them, and they will be relying a lot on him against the Airs because the Airs, I think, are the highest ranked. That's third versus sixth that game. So I think the Airs are the best suited team to be able to topple either the Rams or the Tuatara, but the Saints might well say otherwise just because they have the the depth of talent where they might just be able to score 120 points in a game. They might just be able to shoot a 3-point barrage and the shots drop and they just blow a team away. They can do that. They can do that even against the Rams or Tuatara. But yeah, good matchups there. I particularly do like that Saints versus Bulls one as a game that I think could go either way. The Saints do have home court advantage though, and I do find it hard to see anyone beating the Canterbury Rams overall, who I think are just the deepest, most balanced, best coach roster. But there are definitely candidates. It's been a good season. It's been a competitive season. The Rams did just lose a game the other day, so it's not like they're carrying that winning streak anymore. They've shown some fallibility, and after a bit of a rest, maybe Taranaki or Nelson might give them a run in that semi-final. We'll see, but it's good fun. We're at the pointy end of the season now, where things get quite all these games are extremely what do you call it? It's the consequences are on the line now, right? You can't throw this stuff away. And in recent years, the NBL has served up some outstanding playoff moments. I remember there was some Rob Lowe heroics in one game in a semi-final a couple of years ago where he scored like 8 points in 5 seconds or something disgusting. I'm exaggerating, but it was something like that to force extra time or a winner or something. And obviously, you had the Rams run last year, so we'll see what 2024 serves up.
Who you got any picks?
Picks?
Taranaki, Nelson, Wellington, Franklin.
I kind of just think the higher seed teams have a bit of a distance between them and the rest. So I think that Taranaki will win. I think Taranaki can win fairly comfortably. I think Franklin will give the Saints a big rush, especially if the Saints aren't at 100%. I noticed Ben Air didn't play on the weekend. I don't know what that was about. Maybe I don't know, illness or short term. Careful, don't want to risk him for the semis kind of thing. But I do still think the Saints will win that game, and kind of think it's Rams Tuatara in the final. I think they'll beat whoever comes up against them, but those semis, particularly if it's the Airs and the Saints who go through, I think those semis will be closer than expected. Maybe it's expected isn't the wrong thing. It's playoff basketball, right? Anything can happen, especially because in the NBL these games are all single-legged elimination games. There's no like best of 7 series. There's nothing like that where you lose the first game, okay, you figure it out. The talent kind of rises to the top over the course of a series. Here it's a one-off thing. You stay close, you hit that half-court buzzer beater shot at the right at the end, you win, you progress. Doesn't matter how many games the Rams won throughout the season. If you beat them in a semi-final like that, that's the fun, but the chaotic fun of this type of format.
As it should be. Like maybe the 7-game series is a bit like the 5-test series, where it's like Seems a bit indulgent. You don't really need that many
Yeah.
games, you know?
Yeah, I think the team who wins over 7 would probably also win over 5 games almost every time. Like you get those stats in the NBA all the time, where they're like, if you take a 3-1 series lead, you win 98%, whatever the numbers might be. Kind of tells you that you don't really need a game 7. You might just be able to, a 5-game series might be equally, if not more, so reflective of the caliber of those teams and who actually deserves the win,
Or just a one game. One game's fine.
Or you just play one. Well, everyone does love a game 7 for that reason, because you just get down to like whoever wins wins. You don't win, but then you haven't won because you got to win a bunch more games. You win, you win. One off stuff. But of course that's not going to change in the NBA, because even game 1s, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, those things are getting pretty significant sponsorship money on those broadcasts. So they're not going to stop. They're not going to play less games.
That is the niche cast. Pick up yourself, love yourself. Kia kaha, stay beautiful. Church.